Hello. Thank you for tuning in and checking this video out. Today, I want to talk about an aligned brand and what that even means, how you can get that for yourself, what questions you should ask yourself, why does it matter? So that's what I'm going to be diving in today. I am Jenna. I'm the founder of Sunday Studio for women who are business owners in the health, wellness, and personal development space. I build Squarespace websites, logos, brands, and I love what I do. That's what I'll say about that. Okay, what is alignment? Because you need to know what alignment is before you can understand what an aligned brand is. So, alignment was a term I first heard of through Jess Lively and her community. And if you're unfamiliar with Jess, she is a very well-known podcaster, sort of in the consciousness and wellness space. She's been in this digital entrepreneurship space for a really long time. And she's one of the leaders, sort of that introduced the word alignment to maybe this wellness community. So alignment is pretty much a flow state. And a lot of creatives are pretty familiar with this because it's that feeling you get when you are deep inside of a project and you look up at the time and you're like, oh my gosh, an hour has passed and I had no idea, or hours have passed and I had no idea. So it is this like really immersive, good feeling state. And there's a lot of presence in it. There's a lot of mindfulness that naturally happens because you're just really aware of how happy and good your whole body feels. It is like a whole body sensation. So this flow state, this alignment, there's a phrase about it that I think is really important to this conversation, and that is alignment before action. And all that means is that if you're able to get into this really aligned state before you take action, like if you're a business owner, if you can get into this aligned state in the morning and then go answer a bunch of emails or jump into your work, that your work is better. You are more efficient, you're creating higher quality work, all because you're building things from a really, really high energy state. Your happiness is oozing onto the work that you're doing, if that makes sense. So that is alignment. That's the importance of why alignment might matter as far as that alignment before action thing. And in branding, it makes a lot of sense too, because if you're able to really connect with that brand, the brand that you're building for yourself, the actions that you take from there are higher quality, more efficient, more available to you. Frankly, if you feel more excited about your brand, you will share it more. You will push it out into the world more. You will be proud of it. And that confidence literally turns into sales and dollar bills into your bank account. You can't help but do that because your energy is going to attract people if you are feeling confident in what you're selling. So what can you do? What questions can you ask yourself in order to try to create an aligned brand for you? I have 3 ideas. 1, look at your logo. If you have a logo already, what is the story behind that logo? Is there one? Do you feel connected at all to this logo? I know for a lot of my clients where I create like an icon for them, an image mark for their logo, I like to dig deep. Like an example is a client that I had somewhat recently. We designed this triangular sort of image mark with this geometric icon based off of the door handle of her grandmother's house that she like kind of grew up in and was really inspired by. And my client sent me photos of this door, and it's like this really unique kind of triangular doorknob, and it was really beautiful and meaningful. And the triangle itself, she is a wellness coach. The triangle itself is like a very important symbol. People recognize it as being very balanced. It is like the most balanced shape, right? So people kind of have a feeling around triangles in general, but by adding a few little divots into this icon, this is now like a pretty direct representation of her grandmother's doorknob. So imagine you looking at your logo and thinking, of this very sentimental, sweet memory that you have, or the importance of the story that is inside of your logo. If you can create that, if your designer that you're working with can create that for you, that is one surefire way to make sure you are aligned to your brand. Second question, look at your color palette. Does this color palette reflect your personal style? Even if you don't really know if you have a strong personal style, look at the clothes that you have in your wardrobe. Look around your house, your apartment, whatever home you have. What kind of Airbnbs are you attracted to? What restaurant ambiance type of, environments are you really drawn to? Dark, moody, gender neutral kind of colors? Do you like bright and airy and warm and beachy? What are some of those styles that you personally like? You can embed all of that into your color palette, and you should. Because if your color palette, if you have a favorite color, for example, there's really no reason why we can't in some way incorporate that into your color palette. It's important here to mention that you might say, well, what if, I like the color green, but I'm unsure if my target market's going to like green. And my response to that is, if you are a one-woman show or if you have a small team, you are the face of your brand. And because of that, I believe that your branding should be 60% you, everything you like, who you are, your style, and 40% your ideal client. And the reason why that's the case is that you are actually selling yourself. And so it's important that you are representing who you really are visually. Number two, your services might change a little bit and your target market might shift a little bit. So if you create everything based off of just this one person, and then in 3 months you decide to offer something slightly different, you don't want to have to redo your whole branding just because of that service change. If you can ground 60% of your branding on who you really are, that isn't going to change that quickly, right? So you might still pivot a little bit of the 40% of your brand as your services change, but the essence, the majority of your branding can stay the same, like that favorite color. The third question that I think you should ask yourself to try to find an aligned brand for yourself is, how do you feel about your photography? Do you feel connected to it? A very specific thing I think you need to ask yourself is, if you are always in jeans and you're wearing some fanciful pattern dress in your headshots and photos, that might be a problem. If you don't really feel connected to the person and the essence that you are in these photos, then maybe you want to look at getting some new photos taken. And I'm not saying that your photos should it's okay if they are a slightly more buttoned up professional version of you. That I think is totally good, and I encourage that. Or maybe it's your Sasha fierceness. I don't always wear big hats, every day, but sometimes for my photo shoots, I'll put on these big hats because it just makes me feel really confident. It's something I love. So it's okay if you have a little bit of that embellishment, but you shouldn't look at your photos thinking that they're way more formal than you really are, because you don't want to get on a consult call with somebody and have these photos represent you in a black suit, almost like a lawyer, attorney-esque type of headshots, and then get on a call with you and you're a little bit less buttoned up than that. Maybe you swear on your consult call, or maybe you say this funny story or whatever. This informal attitude that you bring to the consult call, if that doesn't actually match up with the photos, what's going to happen is you're going to cause confusion in your potential clients' minds. And confusion, that leads to frustration. Confusion leads to hesitation around making any sort of purchase with you and continuing on the relationship. And we don't want that, right? Okay, so those are some questions that you can ask yourself to think about your own brand. Now, as I mentioned, 60% of your brand should be you, everything you love, your personal style. 40% should really be geared towards your target market. So the first thing I'll tell you is that if you really have no idea who your target market is, as far as your branding, all I want to tell you is hold off on investing. Do not work with a professional designer. Do not spend thousands of dollars working on anything. If you building a brand, if you are really not sure who you want to serve and who you like to work with, do something DIY for a little bit, brand wise, until you can really get a feel for that. But if you know, then you can take some of those pieces and put them into your brand. But how do you do that? Say you have this person that you would love to work with, like you painted this picture of this 30-year-old person that loves yoga and is in the Just Lively community, and you're a new inner voice coach and you've just gotten certified through her facilitation program. How do you target them? Like, what exactly does that look like? You need to identify some of their other interests and the brands that they're currently following. So if you are, like I said, targeting a person who's in their 30s, you know that they're probably interested in Just Lively in that community. Maybe they're Abraham Hicks fans. Maybe they're Eckhart Tolle fans. Maybe they like Lacy Phillips. What are some of the visuals and the graphics from those brands, from those brand experiences that you can selectively pick and choose from? So Just Lively's brand, for example, is very bright, feminine, has some, like coral color tones, some muted color tones, some arches, some arch shapes, some very like organic kind of like blobby things. I know I can say all this because I designed her website. I don't mean blobby isn't bad, just more organic shapes versus like kind of squares, right? So if that is something that it's okay to take a little bit of that. So I want to share with you that like, as long as you're working with a designer knows like what that line is to not cross. But say you're trying to DIY your brand and you're like, okay, maybe I kind of want to pick and choose a little bit from brands that I think that they like. You can take some of those colors and some of those graphics and use that for your own brand. And what I want to say is no brand owns a color. No brand owns a shape. What a brand is a system of all of those things: colors, images, the way images are treated, fonts, layout. It's a system. That is what's proprietary. Does that make sense? You do not want to copy paste anyone else's website, but if you're inspired by a coral color, you can use that color as part of your color palette. And that is what I would do if I were you, trying to think about that 40% of your brand. Maybe your favorite color is lime green, but you are interested in talking to people in the Just Lively community, and she has lots of bright whites and pinks in her brand. You combine your green and navy and gray and all the things you like with maybe a touch of that coral color. So that is what I mean as far as taking what you love, using that, and also combining it at about a 40% rate with your target market and the graphics and style that you think they are kind of attracted to. And the last thing I will say on this is, I know this can be kind of a taboo subject, as far as like you don't want to copy anybody's website. And what I would like to say to you about that is, the easiest thing to do is, if you feel like you're unsure if you've crossed a line in copying someone else's design and brand, ask yourself, would I feel embarrassed if that person saw my website? And if the answer is no, that you can really back up all of your design decisions and look that person in the eye and say, oh, I was inspired by your site, but by no means is this a copy. I'm positive it's not a copy of your site and of your brand. And hey, if you feel uncomfortable, I can make a couple changes. You can say that confidently, then you can move forward. If your cheeks feel red and hot and you get sweaty thinking about that person finding your site and reaching out and saying, I think your site and brand is a little too close to mine, then you are too close. And that's a really easy gut check. If you feel nervous about it, you're too close. Change some things. drop the color, drop the shape, whatever you need to do to differentiate yourself a little bit. So it's okay to be inspired by other brands that are out there, and especially big brands that you know are big brands. You can't help it. Big brands are infiltrating people's minds. They are affecting how they feel about their brand experiences. And so by you being inspired by some of those choices that other big brands are doing, that's actually very smart. That's not bad. But don't ever, if you ever feel like you're getting too close, bring it back a little bit. So that's what I always like to do. And I like to tell people that, if you can ask yourself, would I feel embarrassed if they saw this, if they called me out, then just take a few steps back. So the next thing I want to kind of dive into is give you some actual concrete examples of what an aligned brand is and how that can affect the business owner. So I was on a consult call at some point recently, and this person is a life coach and a business coach, and they really wanted to see themselves as a disruptor brand, like a brand that really is like very elite and high end and selective with who they work with. Like she really wanted to market and target 6-figure business owners minimum. And she wanted her brand to really feel different, unique, edgy, right? All those are the words that she was using on the consult call. And I shared with her some ideas in how design and branding can achieve those goals. So if that is what she wants to create, that's what's going to make her feel aligned, right? This edgy disruptor brand. How do we bring that into branding? So I told her about the website and how a website experience is just filled with so many opportunities to disrupt the viewer and create that very intentional pause for the person that's scrolling on the website. And the reason why there are all these opportunities is that there are built-in rules of a website design. For example, the navigation is usually at the top of the page, right? The navigation is usually on mobile in this we call it the hamburger bar, those 3 lines that kind of look like a hamburger in the top right corner of the mobile screen. Though that is the unspoken set of rules. If you change a couple of those rules, let's say that the navigation is running like vertically down the side. Everything else is the same on the site as far as the rules of what is like normal and typical, but your navigation is in this unique spot. That's that moment of disruption. That's how we can bring in that edgy, unique feel into her brand. And if she has that and she's sending people to her website and they're experiencing this like moment and pause of disruption, and she's instantly seen as unique. And if she feels like she would be instantly seen as unique, she will share that website more. She will create more work into the world. She will be proud to jump on someone else's Instagram stories and promote herself, send out more newsletters, put herself out on Pinterest. Like there are all these marketing, tools in our disposal that you're more likely to do if you feel confident sending people to your website. That's just the facts. And the second story that I want to share about an aligned brand is actually Jess Lively's website. So I know I spoke a ton about Jess already in this episode here, but in 2020, I redid her website from this older version of WordPress and really upgraded her to this new version. And we did all of this awesome updating and systemizing and streamlining all of the pages on her website. So that was a big overhaul in 2020. But the one thing this was during a kind of early COVID, and she wasn't able to get new photos done for that 2020 overhaul. And that always bugged her. She really loved the new site, but she's like, oh, these photos are just old. They just don't feel like me. Those are those photos were absolutely beautiful. And unless you really knew who Jess was in that moment, you wouldn't think these are bad photos and she should totally get new ones done. You wouldn't really feel that. but Jess didn't feel connected to them. She did not feel connected to them. And so in 2021, she came back around to me and said, let's get new photos and then let's update this site a little bit, like give it a little haircut, a new like alignment refresh, if you will, and add in the photos, update a few graphics. And, she felt confident that she would feel so much better about her website if she was able to do that. And that is what she did. She got all these new photos done about, where she was living in. Had just moved to Portugal at the time. So it was a very present, aligned photo shoot for her. And then she handed me the photos. They sprinkled in so nicely in her site and right on top of like what we had already built. And this refresh, I just feel like catapulted her into this like next level of confidence. After that, she created an app, for her community. She created different kind of strategies for her community to work with each other with things like the living room. And she, just continued to sort of evolve very quickly in her business and continued to put herself out there because I think she felt so confident about her home on the internet. And I just think that type of energetic up level, if you will, when you feel connected to your brand is so, so powerful, like so magical, so powerful. You see upticks in engagement, you see email subscribers increase, you see more sales. I have seen this in my clients, and it is not because a website makes you money. It's energetic. You make yourself money, but your connection to your brand and to your website has the power to convert people because your confidence that you are sharing is magnetic. It just is.